get ready to fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Barratelli and Russ Gallo. And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Barratelli here with you. So glad you can join us, whether you're listening at www.behindenemylinesradio.us or if you're listening on one of our rebroadcast outlets on AM and FM radio. Hello, Radio Land, how you doing? Or if you're listening to us as a podcast, however you're doing it, we're glad that you're with us. Got a great show for you this week. Got brand new interviews from our friend Van Hipp, former Assistant Secretary of the Navy and the Army, talking about FISA warrants and what he would be advising President Trump to do in order to shore up these security leaks that have been plaguing his administration since day one. We're also going to talk to our friend Andre Walker, a regular contributor to the show. If you remember his weekly monologues that he used to do on the show, which are absolutely phenomenal. He's going to talk to us about what it was like to be in London during the terrorist attack on Westminster. One of these days I'm going to be able to say that properly, or I should say properly. And we talked to Andre about his experiences, his knowledge of Parliament. He is the lobby correspondent for The Observer, so he brings a lot of experience of the area of where this attack occurred. We're also going to flash back right now, actually, to an interview we did with Congressman Lou Barletta that we did last summer in talking about sanctuary cities. As you know from watching the news, and of course you watch the news because you listen to my show, I don't have an uninformed audience. You guys know your stuff, especially if you found this podcast and this radio show on your AM/FM dial in Florida and Georgia, wherever you are in the world. You should know that we have been talking about sanctuary cities for at least a year now on the show. But it's just hitting the news now because recently this week, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions has thrown down the gauntlet. If you're a sanctuary city or a sanctuary area, it looks like the free ride is over and that the Department of Justice is going to be looking to do clawback actions to get back federal money that you shouldn't have because you're not following the law. Now listen, I can go into the legalities of this and whether or not it's legal action or not. I mean, here in the People's Republic of New York City, they're having a sanctuary cities convention, basically, where they're trying to teach people how to break the law and try to teach other municipalities how to break the law. Speaker of the New York City Council, Melissa Mark Viverito, that commie, pinko, lunatic, is leading the charge on this. And it's absolutely laughable. It's still an unsettled legal question, folks. I mean, there are cases out there that say that Congress cannot use their money to coerce states to do things. But it doesn't say the executive can't do that. So we may be into some legal murky waters here. But I gotta think there's gotta be some discretion that the executive has when they distribute out grants and aid or whatever money they distribute to states. And Jeff Sessions, I guess, thinks that he's on solid legal ground when it comes to dealing with the sanctuary city issue. Of course, he interrupted the daily press briefing with Sean Spicer, the White House spokesman, and he did a number on sanctuary cities, and I absolutely loved it. But for those of you who need a little bit of a primer on sanctuary cities, let's go back in time to last summer, where we did an interview with Congressman Lou Barletta, who can give you more of a background of sanctuary cities than probably anybody else can, because the man has been talking about this issue for years. Here's Congressman Barletta. Gene Barratelli back behind enemy lines, and I have the pleasure right now to sit down with the representative from the 11th District of the great state of Pennsylvania, Congressman Lou Barletta. Sir, thank you for coming on the show, and tell us about your involvement with FAIR. I believe you're on the Board of Advisors, right?
I am, Gene. I've been doing this now for 10 years. It goes back to my time as mayor of Hazleton time when I first started to come down here, and I've been doing it every year.
Well, let's talk about your term as mayor, because that's really where you started dealing with the issue of illegal immigration. It's not just a federal issue; it's a local issue.
Yeah, it is. There's no question. Nobody here in Congress saw it from with the same perspective that I saw it, trying to deal with it as a mayor of Hazleton. Our population in Hazleton grew by 50%. But our tax revenue stayed the same. When I realized we had an illegal immigration problem, I came down and met with the Department of Justice in December of 2005. They brought all these experts in to talk to me. I told them about the problem that I had, the crime and the illegal immigration problem. And what they gave me at the end of the day was a nice coffee mug, a lapel pin, a pat on the back, and they sent me home. I realized that the federal government wasn't going to do anything to help me on a local level. A couple months later, May 10th, 2006, day I'll never forget, Derek Kishline, 29-year-old city man, father of 3 children. I had some words with the head of the Latin Kings, Pedro Cabrera, someone who was in the country illegally, arrested 6 times in New York and left go, comes to Hazleton. Cabrera goes in his car, gets a gun, sticks it in Derek's face, shoots and kills him. We spent half of our yearly budget in overtime in the police department in catching Cabrera and his buddy, and I had enough. Enough was enough, and I created the first law in America dealing with illegal immigration. I was immediately sued the next day by illegal aliens who were defended by the ACLU. Pro bono. I fought it all the way to the Supreme Court. It became a national issue, although we did not win because of the liberal Third Circuit Court that I had to face. We paved the way for other states and municipalities across America. Arizona used the business portion of my ordinance, and Fremont, Nebraska used the entire ordinance. So it's been a long fight for me, and now I got here to Washington, and I got to see behind the curtains and see exactly what I knew all along from the time I was mayor. There's no real will here to do anything about illegal immigration.
Let's talk about what it's like behind the curtains when it comes to this issue. And you say that there's no will. Tell us exactly what you mean by that. Does that mean that there's no political courage to take on the issue and to call it what it is?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely correct. Listen, it's for a politician, this is not a topic that you want to be out front on because they're worried about getting reelected. You're going to be called a lot of names. Listen, I've had threats. I've been called every name in the book. It goes on and on and on. I've had to have the police sit outside my house some nights because of the fact that I stood up and said what I thought I saw, not what I thought I saw, what I know. No, there's no real will here. People talk the talk, but there's not any action. I mean, here we are. I'm telling you a story about 2006. It's 2016. We're still talking about our open borders, and the threat has gotten worse. Think about it. 2006. We just thought about people coming here taking our jobs, depressing the wages of the American worker. Then we learned, listen, this is the way the drug cartel gets here. Now it's even worse. It's even worse than that. Radical Islamic terrorists are here, and it's still not enough for people here in Washington to say, hey, I think it's a good idea if we secure our borders and we know who's coming into this country. Very first bill I introduced when I got here would prohibit $1 federal to go to any city that declares itself a sanctuary city.
Thank you for bringing up this issue, because I come from the People's Republic of New York City, where we're allocating $60 million for municipal IDs that can be picked up by anybody in a public library and apply for it, and then they can have ID. There's a movement now in the New York City Council to allow for a second type of ballot for illegal immigrants to be able to vote in municipal elections. It's absolute insanity to me to think that government that is basically paid for by citizens who are here legally, whose families have been here for generations, who have a vested interest in what happens in government, are now being diluted by liberals, really, who are fighting for rights for people who don't even respect the laws of this country.
Well, what's crazy is that we have elected officials who are giving more rights to illegal aliens than United States citizens would have. A sanctuary city, they are creating a safe haven where the government will protect the identities of people who have knowingly broken our laws, coming here to the United States, taking our jobs, putting Americans' national security at risk, because we don't know who is who. We don't know the background of any individual that have skirted the interview process. We have government officials protecting illegal aliens. You know, when I was sued by the illegal aliens, when I created that law in Hazleton, the illegal aliens went to the judge and asked if they could have their identities protected, which he granted. We weren't.
Wait. So they were suing, but they didn't want anybody to know who they were while they were suing you.
Nor could we ask them their name. I don't even know if they were really from Hazleton. We weren't allowed to ask. They then went back and asked the judge if they could be excused from showing up at the trial because they were in the country illegally and they didn't want to go to a federal courthouse out of fear of being deported, and the judge granted them that wish.
I'm amazed that they had standing to even sue. That's the craziness of it.
So these illegal aliens were given more rights than you or me, who could not sue our municipality, our city, and remain anonymous. I never saw our accuser. I thought that was a right that every American had. I never saw our accuser to this day. And the court ruled in favor of the illegal aliens. So, you know, here we are, and I can tell you there's a lot of talk here in Washington, but not a lot of will or backbone to actually do something about it.
Well, let's forget about the talk in Washington for a second. Let's talk about the talk around the nation, because maybe it's just me, but let me get your opinion on this. Can we agree that the issues of illegal immigration has been put on the forefront of the campaign for the first time in a very long time?
Oh, there's no question. If it wasn't for Donald Trump, we wouldn't be talking about it. You know, he had the courage to come out and say what people have been thinking, and I related to that because for a very long time I stood out there by myself and I couldn't get a politician to come near me, and come to think of it, it was pretty refreshing. I wish I can do that again now. But
be a Republican in New York City, they'll do that all the time for you. Don't worry.
But if it wasn't for Trump, this issue we would not be talking about it. The other politicians would have skirted around the issue a little bit, throw out a couple of talking points, but there's no real backbone. This is why the American people are as angry as they are, because they don't believe that anybody here in Washington has the courage to do anything about illegal immigration.
Well, listen, I'm glad that we got the chance to speak. You got to make the rounds to all the tables here. Congressman Lou Barletta, tell people, listen, one thing we know from this game is that money and people is what makes the world go round in politics. We want to make sure that you get as much support as you can in all your endeavors in Pennsylvania and here in Washington. Tell people how they can get in touch with you, your staff, or any social media stuff that you want to do and all that fun stuff.
They could follow me and go to my website at loubarletta.com. Lets you know everything that I'm doing, and I'm going to continue the fight, and people can help.
Before I let you go, though, I know we did the plugs right now, and we're going to do it again because I like this guy a lot, folks. Just want to let you know right now. I got to get your opinion on Bill de Blasio, because you mentioned in the story about Hazleton how it was a New York criminal that came into your community and committed that horrendous act. What do you think about this progressive agenda by this now embattled mayor of New York City?
Well, I don't agree with any mayor that creates a safe haven for people who have knowingly broken our laws to come and be protected by that governor. I had a history with some of the New York mayors. I had to testify at one time when I was mayor with Mayor Bloomberg. Actually, it was Mayor Bloomberg, myself, and Police Commissioner Johnson from Philadelphia. We testified at a Senate Judiciary Committee with Senator Ted Kennedy. And, at the time, Mayor Bloomberg said that New York City's economy would crash if it didn't have illegal immigrants. Who would wash our dishes, he said, who would bus our tables, who would clean our hotel rooms. And, my Italian went from 0 to 100. I said, I'll tell you who will wash those dishes. The single mom that not only has to clean hotel rooms, but wash dishes. And I'll tell you who will bus those tables, the high school dropout that has nowhere else to go. What happens to those people? We don't need to bring people in America to take jobs away from those that depend on it to feed their families.
And believe me, when you hear an Italian American say that they go from 0 to 100 that quickly, wow. It's time to get out of the room, look out for wooden spoons, and just generally stay out of people's ways, man. I grew up in a household just like that. The wooden spoon in the back of the head every time. So let's talk one last time about Washington. Even though I hate talking about Washington, I come from New York and this is kind of a welcome change, but Washington to me still feels like a swamp, and I gotta feel dirty kind of when I leave it. Is there any push by the leadership in the House to get any kind of vote onto the floor regarding illegal immigration? You said that there's no political will. Does it start at the top of the House leadership? Am I going to be able to get you to talk badly about House leadership?
I think it's throughout I think it's throughout. I have a bill that would go after visa overstays, and it's very hard to get any of these bills to the floor. I think we need somebody in the White House that will drive the issue. Because this is a topic that most politicians here in Washington, they don't want to do anything about because they're afraid that they won't get reelected again.
And yet they had a perfect opportunity with